So imagine you're trying to bake, like a perfectly crisp, delicate sea base en croûte.
Oh, that is not an easy dish.
Right. I mean, you need the precise temperature. You have the exact timing required to ensure the pastry is golden and flaky, but the fish inside has to stay perfectly moist.
Yeah, the window of error is incredibly small.
Exactly. Now, imagine trying to do that for over 1,000 people.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It really does. And now get this. Imagine trying to do it while floating in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. You're subject to maritime supply chains, and you're in a moving kitchen.
Right, because the logistics of high-end dining are notoriously brutal just on land.
Totally. But at sea, I mean, they border on the impossible. And yet, there is an entire subsector of the travel industry built on the promise that they can pull this off night after night in the middle of the ocean.
It really is a logistical miracle when you actually break down the mechanics of it because, on a standard megaship, the galley is essentially a manufacturing plant.
Yeah, like an assembly line.
It's exactly like an assembly line. It's designed by industrial engineers to output 4, sometimes 5,000 plates in, like a 2-hour window.
Wow, that's just pure volume.
It is. So the food fundamentally has to become banquet food. It's batch-cooked, Eldon warming trays, and plated with extreme speed.
Which is exactly the expectation most people have when they hear the word cruise. It's binary,
Right. You either get the megaship or a tiny yacht.
Exactly. On one side, you have the brochures showing the neon water slides, the floating theme parks, the midnight buffets, where volume is just the primary metric of success. It's sensory overload.
Oh, completely.
But then you step into the world of premium travel, and specifically into the ecosystem of Oceania cruises, and that entire manufacturing paradigm shifts.
It really does.
So today, we are taking a deep dive into a very specific kind of travel. We're unpacking the philosophy, the underlying logistics, and the very deliberate market positioning of Oceania cruises.
And we have some great source material for this.
We do. We are using an incredibly detailed April 2026 briefing from ARI Voyages as our roadmap. We want to understand how this company actually operates for you, the traveler.
Oceania is honestly a fascinating case study in market positioning because they have spent over 2 decades. I mean, they were founded back in 2002, deliberately avoiding the extremes of the cruise industry.
They sort of sit right in the middle, don't they?
Yeah, they occupy what industry analysts often call the upper premium space. Or sometimes you'll hear the term luxury light sweet spot.
Let's actually define what that means structurally, because luxury light sounds a bit like, a marketing buzzword.
It does sound like a catchphrase.
Right. But from what I understand, it's a very specific architectural and operational choice.
It absolutely is. So if you look at the industry on a spectrum, on the far left, you have those mass market megaships we talked about. High volume, lower base price, but they monetize you heavily through onboard spending.
You're paying for everything once you get on board.
Exactly. Then on the far right, you have the ultra-luxury brands. Think Regent Seven Seas or Silversea.
The ones where you have a butler.
Right. These are all sweet butler service ships. The upfront ticket price is astronomical, but absolutely everything is included.
Every shore excursion, every drink.
Yes. So Oceania sits deliberately in the middle. They offer the intimacy and the culinary refinement of the ultra-luxury ships, but they strip away the extreme formal pretension.
And the massive price tag, I imagine.
Precisely. They bring the price down by not including every single thing under the sun, like unlimited shore excursions or premium spirits.
To put it in terms of hospitality on land, it seems like Oceania operates a lot like a highly sought-after upscale neighborhood restaurant.
Oh, that's a really good way to think about it.
You know the exact kind of place I'm talking about. The lighting is low, the service is incredibly intuitive, the ingredients are impeccable, but it completely lacks that stiff, ceremonial pretension of a Michelin 3-star establishment.
Right, where everyone is whispering.
Exactly. You don't walk in and feel terrified of using the wrong fork or speaking too loudly. It is exceptional, but it is comfortable.
That's a highly accurate analogy, especially regarding their service philosophy. And it speaks directly to their core demographic.
Who is that exactly?
Well, Oceania is engineered from the hull up for a traveler who believes that the only way to genuinely understand the world, to comprehend the cultural fabric of a destination, is through its cuisine and its people.
And doing it at an unhurried pace, as the briefing mentions.
Crucially, at an unhurried pace.
That unhurried pace is such a vital concept because the modern travel industry is so often defined by this frantic, checklist mentality.
Rushing from monument to monument.
Right, but you can't just mandate an unhurried pace in a brochure. You have to build physical systems that actually allow for it.
You really do.
And I think to understand how Oceania engineers that environment, we have to start with the food, because they have literally trademarked a very bold phrase.
Oh, yes. The finest cuisine at sea.
Yeah, the finest cuisine at sea. And in an industry where superlatives are just thrown around like confetti, everyone claims to have the best service, the finest luxury, the most spectacular views.
Right, the words almost lose their meaning.
Exactly. So trademarking that specific phrase is planting a massive flag.
They definitely set a high bar for themselves.
Frankly, I approach claims like that with a lot of skepticism. Every cruise line's marketing material features a beautifully lit photograph of like a perfectly seared scallop.
Of course. It's advertising.
Right. And if you look at the mass market ships, they all have specialty steakhouses now. They all have celebrity chef partnerships. So how is Oceania's claim actually any different? Are we talking about a structural difference in the food, or is this just brilliant branding?
It is absolutely a structural difference. It's not just a slogan. And to understand why, you have to look at the institutional foundation they laid down in 2003, which was just 1 year after the company was founded.
That was a pivotal year for them.
It was. That was the year they brought on Chef Jacques Pépin as their executive culinary director.
For anyone who only knows the modern era of food television, we really need to pause and establish who Jacques Pépin is.
Yeah.
Because Celebrity Chef just does not do him justice.
No, it really doesn't. He is a legend.
This is a man who is the personal chef to 3 French heads of state, including Charles de Gaulle. He has authored 30 cookbooks. He essentially defined classical French technique for American audiences alongside Julia Child. He is a titan.
He is. And what usually happens in the cruise industry when a line partners with a chef of that caliber is, well, it's just a licensing deal.
They just buy the name.
Exactly. The cruise line pays a massive fee. The chef puts his name on a single specialty restaurant, maybe designs a menu of 10 dishes, takes some press photos, and walks away.
And then who actually cooks the food?
The daily execution is just left to the ship's existing, volume-focused galley staff.
Right. The celebrity chef isn't actually on the ship making sure the line cooks are executing the demi-glace correctly.
Precisely. But Pépin took a completely different approach. He didn't just license a restaurant. He built an institutional, top-down culinary philosophy for the entire fleet.
What does that actually look like in practice?
He fundamentally redesigned how the galleys operate. He changed the ratio of prep cooks to line cooks. He instituted a system where, instead of cooking thousands of meals in massive batches hours before dinner, the galleys operate much more like a real restaurant kitchen.
Oh, so they cook to order.
Exactly. They are built to cook a la minute to order, even for a dining room that's seating hundreds of people.
Which goes right back to the difference between a manufacturing plant and a true kitchen. Cooking a la minute at that scale requires a level of staff training that is incredibly expensive and difficult to maintain.
It's a huge operational commitment.
It's not just about the recipe, it's about the supply chain, the timing, and the culture of the kitchen. And what fascinated me in the area Voyage's briefing is that this isn't just a historical footnote.
No, the legacy is very much alive.
Right. Pépin's legacy is actively being pushed forward right now by the current executive culinary directors, chefs Alexis Coretti and Eric Barral.
Yes, and the briefing highlights a detail about Coretti and Barral that is arguably the most important metric of quality for this entire operation.
Which is?
Both of these chefs are inducted members of the Maître Cuisinier de France, the MCF.
I feel like we need to unpack what the MCF actually is. Because it sounds like a nice club, but the reality of getting that title is intense.
It is arguably the most rigorous culinary association in the world. To become a master chef of France, you don't just fill out an application and pay a fee.
It's not just a networking group.
Not at all.
No.
It requires a flawless execution of classical French technique, decades of proven leadership, and you have to be sponsored and peer-reviewed by existing members who actually inspect your operations. It is a defense of French gastronomy.
It's the culinary equivalent of passing the bar exam, defending a PhD thesis, and winning an Olympic medal all at the exact same time.
That's a very fair comparison. And here's the crucial point for the listener. Oceania is the only cruise line globally that has 2 MCF members leading its culinary program.
Which sounds incredibly prestigious, but let me play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Say, I am a passenger, I am on a ship. I honestly don't care about the plaques on the wall in the corporate office. What does having two master chefs of France actually mean for the food on my plate?
How does it translate to the dining room?
Yeah, how does that institutional pedigree manifest in the dining room on a random Tuesday night in the agency?
It manifests primarily in two operational realities:
Hmm.
menu dynamism and localized sourcing.
Okay, let's break those down.
Because the galleys are designed for technical execution rather than pure batch manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
the menus can actually change based on the specific destination you are sailing through. They have the agility to adapt.
Right, because if you are operating an assembly line, changing the output is a massive logistical nightmare. You can't just suddenly decide to make souvlaki instead of burgers.
Exactly. But if you have highly trained technicians, they can pivot. And the second reality is sourcing.
Where they actually get the food.
Yes. Most large cruise lines provision their ships in massive logistical hubs. If a ship is sailing the Mediterranean, it is highly likely that a significant portion of its ingredients were loaded onto shipping containers in Miami or Southampton.
Wow, so they are frozen and shipped out weeks in advance.
Exactly. Oceania's model prioritizes sourcing ingredients locally in port whenever physically possible.
Which fundamentally changes the taste of the food. There is simply no comparison between a tomato that was frozen and shipped across the Atlantic and a tomato that was brought aboard in Naples that very morning.
None at all. And managing that local supply chain is incredibly complex. You have to have chefs who know how to inspect local markets, understand regional seasonality, and adapt the evening's menu based on what was actually available at the dock that morning.
It requires real culinary improvisation.
Exactly. A level of improvisation that only top-tier leadership can really manage.
Okay, so we've established the top-tier leadership, the MCF credentials, the local sourcing. The natural next step is to explore the actual venues. Where do you eat this food?
The dining rooms themselves.
Right. And more importantly, how do you pay for it? Because the economics of cruise dining have become incredibly contentious in recent years.
This is perhaps the single biggest differentiator for the Oceania brand,
Yeah.
and it is central to what they call their Your World Included model.
Let's dive into this, because this is where the traditional cruise business model usually falls apart for me.
How so?
Well, on almost every other mainstream or even premium cruise line, the main dining room is included in your ticket. But the moment you want to go to the high-end steakhouse or the authentic sushi bar or the classic French restaurant, you are hit with a cover charge.
The upcharge.
Yeah. And it's not small anymore. We are talking $50, $75, sometimes over $100 per person just to walk in the door. It turns the ship into a floating strip mall where you are constantly being upsold.
The upcharge model is entirely driven by the necessity of mass market economics. If you sell a cruise fare for a very low base rate, you have to make the profit margin up somewhere.
Right. The cheap ticket is just bait.
Exactly. Specialty dining cover charges are a massive revenue stream for large ships. But on Oceania, all of the specialty restaurants are included in the standard cruise fare.
Wait, really? None? No reservation fees? No hidden cover charges?
None.
Yeah.
You are not financially penalized for wanting to experience the best culinary offerings the ship has.
But let me push back on this, because there is no such thing as a free lunch, let alone a free dry-aged steak. Isn't this just a psychological trick? Aren't you just prepaying for that steak in the form of a higher upfront ticket price?
Economically, yes, absolutely. The cost of running a high-end steakhouse is baked into the premium fare you pay to get on the ship.
So you are paying for it.
You are. But psychologically it makes all the difference in the world. When you sit down at a table on a vacation, the moment you have to look at a menu with prices or sign a folio with a room charge, a mental friction occurs.
Oh, I hate that feeling.
Right. You start doing the math, you think, is this steak worth $50? Should we just go to the free buffet instead?
It totally ruins the vibe.
By reeling the cost into the upfront fare, Oceania removes that friction entirely. You evaluate your evening based purely on what you desire to experience, not on what you're willing to spend in that specific moment.
That is a brilliant point. The friction of the mental math is exhausting. Removing it is a luxury in itself. So, knowing that we can walk into any restaurant without swiping a cruise card, let's walk through the actual venues. Because the ARI briefing breaks down a very distinct culinary ecosystem across these ships.
The anchor of that ecosystem is the grand dining room. This is the large central venue open for all meals.
The main hub.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And this is where you see the most significant menu rotation. The culinary team has developed hundreds of distinct dishes that cycle through this room.
So you don't get bored.
Right. The goal is that even if you are on a 20-day or 30-day voyage, the grand dining room never feels repetitive.
And then you step into the specialty venues, which are highly focused. Let's start with Jacques, which is, of course, named for Jacques Pepin.
The temple to classic French cuisine.
It is. And the briefing highlights 3 specific dishes that really tell you everything you need to know about the technical ambition of this venue. Crêpe Suzette, beef tartare, and sea bass en croûte.
Which goes right back to our opening hook.
Yes. Sea bass baked in a pastry crust. The timing required for that is unforgiving. If you miss the window by 3 minutes, the pastry is soggy or the fish is dry.
It's ruined.
Yeah. Executing that on a moving vessel for a full dining room is a massive flex. It is the chefs showing off.
It is absolute technical precision. Then you have the Polo Grill, which is their signature steakhouse. But again, it's not just throwing a piece of meat on a flat-top grill.
What elevates it?
It's focused on USDA prime, dry-aged cuts. It features elevated, highly composed side dishes, and the wine list is specifically curated by their sommeliers to match that heavy, savory flavor profile.
A great steakhouse is a staple. But if you want something vibrant, you go to Toscana. Authentic Italian. Handmade pastas extruded daily on the ship.
And I found it fascinating that on the newer ships, the Toscana menu features selections inspired by Giada de Laurentiis.
Oh, wow. So they are bringing in modern influences, too.
Yes, it shows they are continually updating the profile.
And we absolutely cannot overlook red ginger. According to industry metrics and the briefing itself, red ginger is consistently praised as one of the most popular and highly rated venues in the entire fleet.
It is Pan-Asian cuisine, but it's crucial to note that it doesn't just offer a generalized, watered-down Asian fusion menu.
It's not just basic mall food.
Exactly. It leans into very specific regional traditions. Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and Nikkei.
I want to pause on Nikkei cuisine for a second because I think a lot of people might not know what that is, and it's a brilliant inclusion.
It's a really unique culinary tradition.
It is. Nikkei is the culinary result of the Japanese diaspora in Peru that began in the late 19th century. So you have Japanese technical precision, like slicing raw fish, combined with Peruvian ingredients like ají amarillo peppers, lime juice, and corn.
It is explosive, vibrant food.
The fact that a cruise line is executing complex Nikkei cuisine rather than just serving generic teriyaki chicken speaks volumes about the target audience.
It demands a highly sophisticated palate. And speaking of specific demands, we should discuss Aquamar Kitchen.
Yes, because wellness dining on a vacation is usually incredibly depressing.
It really is.
On most ships, the wellness option is just a sad, wilted salad bar or a plate of steamed broccoli pushed to the far corner of the buffet line. It always feels punitive, like you're being punished for not eating the steak.
That's exactly how the industry has treated it for decades. But Aquamar Kitchen is built as a genuine, dedicated alternative.
So it's not an afterthought.
Not at all. It's nutrition-forward, offering lighter menus, cold-pressed juices, and energy bowls. But crucially, the ingredients and the preparation are treated with the exact same culinary respect as the French or Italian venues.
So it actually tastes good.
Exactly. It's a destination in itself for travelers who want to maintain a certain lifestyle without sacrificing flavor.
So you have all of these incredible venues, and they are all included under this Your World Included umbrella, but we need to deconstruct that package further.
There's a lot more to it than just the food.
Right, because when you are looking at a cruise fare, specialty dining is only one piece of the puzzle. What else is actually covered to remove that friction we talked about?
The Your World Included model is a very robust package designed specifically to eliminate the feeling of being nickel and dimed. Alongside the dining, it includes unlimited Wi-Fi for all guests across all devices.
Which used to be an exorbitant upcharge.
Oh, it was a massive profit center for cruise lines. Furthermore, the package includes all shipboard gratuities.
This means there are no daily service charges suddenly appearing on your final folio at the end of the week.
Exactly.
We have to emphasize how huge that is. On a mainstream cruise line, the daily gratuity charge is often around $20 per person per day.
It adds up fast.
For a couple on a 2-week cruise, that's an extra $600 quietly added to the bill at the end. It changes the entire dynamic of the service.
It absolutely does. When gratuities are included, you aren't constantly wondering if you need to tip the bartender an extra dollar to get a good drink. The service is elevated precisely because the financial transaction has been removed from the interaction.
That makes so much sense. What else is in the package?
In addition to gratuities, the package includes specialty beverages. So your premium coffees, cappuccinos, artisanal teas, fresh squeezed juices, soft drinks, smoothies, and even the gourmet ice cream at the gelateria are all completely covered.
So there's no swiping your card for a morning latte.
None. It also covers group fitness classes, things like yoga and aerobics, and full room service from the main dining menu, which they call in-suite dining, at no extra charge.
That's amazing.
Even guest laundry services are included as part of the standard fare.
The laundry inclusion is incredibly practical, especially for the longer voyages we'll talk about later. So the baseline experience is incredibly elevated. The friction is mostly gone.
It is.
But in the interest of total transparency, and since we are doing a deep dive into the real mechanics of this brand, we need to clarify what isn't included, because they are not an ultra-luxury, fully all-inclusive brand.
Right. And this is exactly where that upper premium positioning is defined. If Oceania included absolutely everything, their base fare would have to skyrocket to match Regent or Silversea.
They have to draw a line somewhere.
To keep the price point accessible to the premium cruiser, certain things remain a la carte. Primarily, alcohol. Premium spirits, wine, and beer are not included in the base fare, though beverage packages are available for purchase.
So if you want a martini before dinner, or a bottle of Barolo with your steak, you are paying for that.
Correct. Additionally, spa treatments are extra. The hands-on culinary center classes, which are spectacular, and we will discuss them shortly, are an extra fee.
And shore excursions.
Most shore excursions are out of pocket, though the briefing notes that on select sailings, promotional perks might offer excursion credits.
The ARI Voyages briefing gives a really solid practical budgeting tip for this. They suggest that, assuming you aren't buying high-end vintage wines every night, you should expect to spend about $75 to $125 per person per day for those extras.
Which is very reasonable.
Honestly, when your specialty dining, your lattes, and your gratuities are already paid for, that is a very reasonable estimate for a high-end vacation.
It allows the traveler to control their own costs without feeling like they are being denied the core luxury of the ship.
Okay, so we've talked extensively about eating the food, the sourcing, the chefs, the venues, but eating incredible food is fundamentally a passive experience.
You're just sitting there receiving it.
Right. You sit in a beautiful chair, a waiter brings you a plate, you enjoy it, and you leave. But Oceania clearly understands that their target demographic, these deep food enthusiasts, sometimes want to get their hands dirty.
They want to participate.
Exactly. And this leads us to how the ships themselves are physically engineered to support this obsession.
This is a critical evolution in their fleet. We need to look at the Culinary Center, which was first introduced aboard the Marina and the Riviera.
What makes it so special?
It is vital to understand that this is not a demonstration kitchen. It is not a theater where you sit in the audience and watch a chef cook on a television monitor.
Oh, like those cooking shows where the audience just claps when the chef flips a pancake?
Exactly. This is a fully equipped, hands-on cooking school at sea. Every participant has their own fully outfitted workstation with induction cooktops, professional cutlery, and prep areas.
So you're really cooking.
You are actively cooking under the guidance of master chefs.
I have to admit, when I first read about this, I had a very specific reaction.
Was that?
Isn't a vacation supposed to be a break from cooking? I mean, why on earth would I pay an extra fee to do chores at sea? I am literally paying for the privilege of standing at a cutting board chopping onions.
It's a completely fair pushback. If you view cooking as a daily logistical chore, getting dinner on the table for the kids by 6 p.m., then yes, it sounds like work.
Exactly.
But if we analyze the psychology of this specific demographic, cooking isn't a chore. It is an avenue for cultural immersion. The appeal of the Culinary Center is that the itinerary itself becomes the curriculum.
The itinerary is the curriculum. I really like that framing. How does that actually work in practice?
The briefing provides some brilliant examples of this synergy. Imagine you are sailing through the Andaman Sea, heading toward Thailand.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The day before you arrive in port, you aren't just sitting by the pool. You are in the Culinary Center taking a masterclass on Thai spice techniques.
Oh, so you're prepping for the destination.
Yes. You are physically learning how to balance the heat of chilies, the acidity of lime, the pungent umami of fish sauce, and the aromatics of lemongrass and galangal. When you arrive in Thailand the next day, your palate is completely calibrated to understand the street food you are tasting.
That completely changes your interaction with the destination. You aren't just a passive observer anymore.
Or consider the Mediterranean. You are sailing along the Amalfi Coast, and you spend the afternoon in the Culinary Center learning to extrude and shape pasta.
Using local techniques.
Exactly, using the exact same methods and regional flour varieties that have been utilized in Neapolitan kitchens for generations.
So you are building muscle memory of the culture. And they take it a step further, don't they? It's not just contained in the classroom.
No, the ultimate expression of this is their market-to-table experiences. In certain ports, the classroom extends onto the land.
How does that work?
You physically leave the ship with the executive chef, you go into the local municipal market, and you learn how to select ingredients.
Oh, wow. Like a local.
You learn how to inspect the gills of a fish for freshness, or how to choose the right tomatoes. You purchase the ingredients alongside the chef, and then you return to the culinary center to cook a meal with the exact items you just bargained for.
See, that is the kind of visceral travel memory that sticks with you for a decade. You won't remember a generic buffet line, but you will absolutely remember the morning you haggled for artichokes in a Sicilian market with a French master chef.
It's an unforgettable experience.
But to understand how they can physically deliver all of these experiences, we have to look at the naval architecture. We have to look at the vessels themselves, because the physical layout of the fleet dictates everything we've talked about so far.
The fleet evolution of Oceania is really a masterclass in controlled scaling. They currently operate across 4 generations of ships, and each class serves a very specific strategic purpose.
Let's break those down, because ship size is the single most defining factor of a cruise experience.
The foundation of the fleet, the DNA of the brand, rests on the R-class ships. These are the Insignia, Nautica, Regatta, and Serena.
And what are the specs on these?
They are small. They carry just 684 guests.
684. To put that in perspective for you listening, a modern mass-market megaship carries upwards of 5,000 to 6,000 passengers. 684 is practically a private yacht by comparison.
It is incredibly intimate, but that intimacy isn't just about feeling uncrowded. It is a vital operational tool.
Because of where they can go.
Exactly. Because these ships have a smaller physical footprint and a shallower draft, meaning the hull doesn't go as deep into the water. They can access tiny, off-the-beaten-path ports, shallow harbors, and narrow rivers that the megaships simply cannot physically navigate.
That makes total sense. If you are on a massive ship, you can't dock in a tiny Greek fishing village. You have to dock at a massive industrial concrete pier 50 miles away and take a bus.
Exactly. The R-Class is built for extreme destination access. But as the brand grew, they realized they needed a platform to expand their culinary offerings, specifically to house things like the Culinary Center.
Which wouldn't fit on the smaller ships.
Right. And that led to the second generation, the Oceania class. This includes the Marina and the Riviera.
And these are a step up in size. They carry 1,250 guests.
Yes, nearly double the capacity, but still very much in the mid-size category. The extra tonnage allowed them to add more specialty dining venues, larger public spaces, and that dedicated cooking school without sacrificing the upper premium space-to-guest ratio.
From there, we move to the newest generation currently sailing, the Allura class. This includes the Vista, which launched in 2023, and the Allura, which hit the water in 2025.
These also carry around 1,200 guests.
But the architectural shift here is massive.
It's a total redesign of the passenger experience. The Allura-class ships are entirely all-veranda.
We really need to pause on this because building an all-veranda ship is an engineering nightmare.
Oh, it's incredibly complex.
Right. On a standard ship, the most profitable, space-efficient cabins are the interior rooms, the ones in the middle of the hallway with no windows. They are cheap to build and easy to stack.
They pack people in.
Exactly. To eliminate interior cabins entirely and ensure that every single room has a private balcony facing the ocean, you have to radically alter the structural integrity, the weight distribution, and the sheer width of the vessel.
It is incredibly expensive to build, but it completely changes the standard of luxury. You no longer have a cheap tier of claustrophobic rooms. Every single guest has private outdoor space.
And the rooms themselves are bigger too?
Yes. Because they aren't cramming interior rooms into the floor plan, the standard rooms are incredibly spacious. A standard veranda stateroom on the Allura class comes in at around 245 square feet.
Which is massive for a ship.
The industry average for a standard cabin is usually hovering around 150 to 170 square feet.
And if you want to look at the extreme end of the luxury spectrum, the owner's suites on the Allura are sprawling. They feature 1,335 square feet of interior living space, plus a 665 square foot wraparound terrace.
That is nearly 2,000 square feet of private space. That is substantially larger than my first 2 apartments combined.
It's essentially a luxury condo on the water. It really is. But the evolution doesn't stop with the Allura class, because the ARIA briefing gives us a very clear glimpse into the immediate future. The next chapter is the Sonata class.
Yes, the Oceania Sonata is scheduled to debut in August 2027. It will be slightly larger, accommodating 3,390 guests, and 30% of the accommodations will be suites.
That's a significant upgrade.
It is. But keeping with the foundational thesis of the brand, the real headline for the Sonata class isn't just the rooms, it's the culinary evolution.
They're introducing two brand new, world-first culinary concepts on the Sonata, and the first one is genuinely wild. It is called La Table par Maître Cuisinier de France.
It represents the absolute pinnacle of their MCF partnership. It is a dedicated, wildly exclusive fine dining room with only 18 seats.
Just 18 seats.
Yes, and it will be the only restaurant at sea officially certified by the Master Chefs of France.
An 18-seat restaurant on a ship carrying nearly 1,400 people. The exclusivity of that is off the charts.
It's going to be the toughest reservation on the ship.
Without a doubt. The logistical effort required to source ingredients, prep, and execute a menu for a room that only seats 18 people is the definition of bespoke luxury.
It's a statement piece. It proves they aren't diluting their culinary focus as the ships get slightly larger. And the second new concept is just as interesting. It's called Nikkei Kitchen.
We touched on Nikkei cuisine earlier when discussing the red ginger menu, but here they are dedicating an entire standalone venue exclusively to it.
Exactly. Red Ginger offers Pan-Asian, but Nikkei Kitchen will focus solely on that Peruvian-Japanese fusion. As the briefing notes, Nikkei has become one of the most exciting, dynamic culinary movements globally over the last decade.
Which proves a really important point about Oceania's culinary philosophy. They have Jacques Pepin and the MCF anchoring them in timeless classical French technique, but they aren't trapped in the past.
They are keeping an eye on the future.
Right. They aren't just serving heavy sauces and pretending it's 1950. They are actively monitoring global culinary trends and building entire restaurants to bring those modern flavors to their guests.
It's a highly balanced approach to gastronomy.
Okay, so we have covered the food in exhaustive detail. We've analyzed the menus, the chefs, the economics of the inclusions, and the architectural evolution of the ships that make it all possible.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But ultimately, a ship, no matter how beautiful the verandas are or how many MCF plaques hang in the galley, is a vessel. Its primary function is to transport you from one piece of land to another.
That's the whole point of a cruise, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that leads us to the destination philosophy. Because the mid-sized scale of these ships fundamentally alters the map of where you can go.
The physical size of the ship dictates the geographical reality of the itinerary. We touched on this with the R-class ships.
Right, the small ones.
If you are sailing on a vessel carrying 5,000 people, you are entirely restricted to massive, highly industrialized commercial ports. You dock in places built for container ships.
Which are usually far away from the actual city centers.
Exactly. But Oceania utilizes its smaller footprint to access boutique harbors, city center docks, and remote coastal towns.
But it's not just about where they go, it's about how long they stay there. The concept of the port day is one of the most stressful parts of modern cruising.
Oh, the frantic rush.
It is. On a mega ship, a port day is essentially a frantic 6-hour sprint. You disembark at 8 a.m. alongside thousands of other people. You get on a bus, you drive an hour to the actual city, you take a photo of a monument, you buy a magnet, you eat a mediocre lunch, and you are terrified of missing the 3:30 p.m. all-aboard call. It is exhausting.
It's the antithesis of the unhurried pace Oceania promises. To counter that, Oceania has completely redefined their scheduling.
How so?
They are a destination-focused line, and the primary tool they use to achieve that is the extended stay, and specifically the overnight call.
The overnight call changes the entire psychological landscape of the trip. If you are docked in Venice or Barcelona or Bordeaux and your ship leaves at 4 p.m., you have completely missed the culture of that city.
You've missed the best part of the day.
Exactly. A European city doesn't even wake up until the sun goes down. The locals come out, the dinner scene begins, the lighting changes. By staying overnight, or at least very late into the evening, you actually get to experience the destination as a living place rather than a museum exhibit you rush through.
The 2026 itinerary collection clearly illustrates this philosophy in action. It is incredibly dense and focused on deep regional exploration rather than just checking off the famous tourist traps.
Let's look at some of these 2026 routes, because the RII briefing outlines some fascinating geography. The Mediterranean is obviously a staple, but they have 3 ships sailing over 50 distinct itineraries there between April and December.
And they are explicitly targeting lesser-known coastal towns, the hidden gems of the Riviera and the Adriatic alongside the necessary marquee ports.
So you get the big names and the hidden spots.
Yes. They also dedicate 3 ships to Northern Europe during the summer months. This includes deep explorations of the Baltics, the Norwegian fjords, Scandinavia, the British Isles, and pushing all the way up into Iceland and Greenland.
The Vista is also returning to Alaska. But again, the programming is highly specific. It's not just about looking at a glacier from the deck.
It's much deeper than that.
Right. The itineraries are curated to focus intensely on true wilderness immersion and indigenous cultural encounters.
I actually think the most telling itinerary in the entire 2026 collection is the Eastern Canada route.
Oh, the one on the Vista.
Yes. The Vista is sailing a route that makes calls in Montreal, Charlottetown, and a place called Havre-Saint-Pierre.
I had to look Havre-Saint-Pierre up on a map. It is a tiny, incredibly charming, remote maritime community in Quebec, right on the north shore of the Gulf of St. Lawrence.
It's very isolated.
It is not a place you go if you want massive duty-free shopping malls.
No.
That itinerary appeals directly to a traveler who values the quiet character of small, authentic port communities.
And if you are the type of traveler who desires total immersion, who wants to see the entire globe without constantly packing and unpacking, Oceania is famous for its grand voyages.
These are the epic routes. We are talking sailings that range from 22 days to 67 days.
That's a long time on a ship.
It is. And then there are the world cruises, which can stretch up to 200 days, spanning all 7 continents.
A 200-day voyage is an entirely different category of travel.
It really is. 200 days on a ship. You aren't just taking a vacation at that point. You have essentially become a resident of the ocean. You are living a maritime lifestyle.
You're practically moving in.
Exactly. Which means you have to implicitly trust the environment you are in. You have to love the food, obviously, but you also have to love the atmosphere. And that transitions us perfectly into our final major area of analysis.
The onboard vibe.
Right. We know the food, we know the economics, we know the naval architecture and the destinations, but who are you actually sharing this environment with? What does it feel like to walk onto the pool deck on a random Tuesday afternoon?
The onboard atmosphere, the vibe, is often the make-or-break variable for any traveler. You can have the best food in the world, but if the energy of the ship is wrong for you, the vacation is ruined.
It's so true.
And recently, Oceania made a massive, highly publicized policy shift that defines their atmosphere more clearly than ever before.
Yes, this is a huge operational detail. As of January 7, 2026, Oceania Cruises became a fully adults-only brand. 18 plus, fleet-wide, with absolutely no exceptions.
From an industry perspective, this was a fascinating move. As the ARIA briefing notes, this mandate essentially formalizes what was already largely true in practice.
Right. It's not like families with toddlers were flocking to Oceania in the first place. There are no kids clubs, no water slides, no mascots.
Exactly. But by making it an official hardline mandate, they guarantee a specific, predictable environment for their guests. It is a promise that you will never have a romantic dinner interrupted by a screaming toddler or have to dodge running children around the pool deck.
But let's analyze the cultural result of that, because sometimes when you officially ban anyone under 18, the atmosphere can swing too far in the other direction.
It's like it becomes too quiet.
Yeah. Does it become a giant floating retirement home where the entire ship shuts down at 8 p.m.? Or is it more like a highly sophisticated resort?
It is definitively the latter. The brand relies on a very specific phrase to describe their vibe, and the briefing points out that it is unusually accurate. Country club casual.
Country club casual. It instantly paints a picture of a specific aesthetic.
It does. It means the environment is inherently refined, the service is incredibly attentive and personalized, but it is entirely devoid of stiffness.
What does that look like in practice?
The most obvious manifestation of this is the dress code. There are absolutely no formal nights on Oceania.
None. No captain's dinner where everyone has to dress like James Bond.
None. There are no black tie requirements whatsoever. You do not have to stress about packing a tuxedo or a ball gown or keeping a formal suit wrinkle-free in a suitcase for 2 weeks.
Which, purely from a logistical standpoint, is a massive relief when you are dealing with modern airline baggage weight limits.
Precisely. The daytime atmosphere is completely relaxed. Shorts, t-shirts, and casual resort wear are perfectly fine everywhere on the ship.
And in the evening?
When the evening begins after 6:00 p.m., the dress code simply shifts to smart casual. That means a collared shirt and slacks for men, and a dress, elegant blouse, or chic resort wear for women. It is elegance without the exhausting ceremony.
And the onboard entertainment perfectly mirrors that relaxed, sophisticated aesthetic. If you don't have kids to entertain and you aren't trying to throw a massive high-decibel deck party with a DJ, how do you spend your time at sea?
And they focus on enrichment.
Right. Oceania structures their daily programming around 4 pillars: enrich, entertain, unwind, and connect.
And the balance of that programming leans heavily toward the intellectual and the cultural, rather than the pure spectacle. You are not going to find a multi-million-dollar Broadway-style mega production in the theater.
But you will find a brilliant string quartet playing in the lounge. You will find culinary showcases, wine tastings, and deeply informative cultural presentations.
You're learning while you relax.
Exactly. You might sit in the theater and listen to a historian give a fascinating lecture about the specific political history of the port you are docking in tomorrow morning. It treats the guest as an intellectually curious adult.
So we have to ask, based on everything we've analyzed, who is the ideal traveler for this product?
Let's build the persona. The typical Oceania guest is an experienced adult traveler. Demographically, they often fall into the 55 to 75 age range. But as the briefing notes, the defining characteristic isn't their age, it is their mindset.
They value the experience over the thrills.
Right. They are well-traveled, and they possess a genuine, deep-seated interest in culinary exploration and cultural immersion.
The briefing also mentions a very specific trajectory. Oceania is highly attracted to travelers who have spent years sailing with premium mass-market lines, brands like Holland America, Princess, or Celebrity.
So people looking for an upgrade.
Exactly. These travelers have outgrown the crowds and the upcharges, and they are ready to step up to something more intimate and refined. But, crucially, they might not be ready or willing to commit to the astronomical price tag of a true ultra-luxury line.
It is also, notably, an excellent fit for solo travelers. Because the ships are smaller and the atmosphere is country club casual, it creates an environment that is naturally sociable.
It's easy to meet people.
It is. You can easily sit at the bar in the Polo Grill and strike up a conversation with the person next to you over a cocktail. But that socialization is organic. It isn't forced upon you by an over-caffeinated cruise director with a microphone trying to organize a conga line.
It respects your autonomy.
Now, if you were listening to this rigorous breakdown and thinking, this sounds exactly like what I want, you still need to understand the broader market context, because Oceania does not exist in a vacuum. There are other heavy hitters in this high-end space, so let's do a competitor showdown.
This is always the most helpful part.
Let's look at the primary alternatives and outline exactly what the trade-offs are.
This comparative analysis is crucial for making an informed financial decision. Let's start with the most direct comparison, Viking Ocean.
They seem very similar on paper.
Viking and Oceania are fiercely competitive because they share a nearly identical guest profile. Both operate mid-sized ships, both are completely adults only, and both employ a very strong destination-first philosophy with longer port stays.
Looking at those similarities, they seem almost interchangeable. But reading between the lines of the Agria briefing, there is a fundamental philosophical divide.
What did you pick up on?
I look at Viking Ocean, and it feels like they are aiming to be a floating university. They lean incredibly heavily into academic and cultural enrichment. They have resident historians on every sailing. They host TED Talks. Their destination lectures are exhaustive.
And their ship design is very different, too.
Right. It's a very austere, minimalist Scandinavian aesthetic. And notably, Viking ships do not have casinos. Oceania, by contrast, feels like a floating culinary institute. Am I misreading that divide?
No, you have identified the exact pivot point. Viking's food is very good, but it is not the primary focus of their brand identity. Oceania absolutely owns the culinary depth in the premium segment.
So it comes down to priorities?
The MCF chefs, the massive variety of specialty venues, the Culinary Center Viking simply doesn't offer that level of gastronomic complexity. So the choice between the two really comes down to your primary passion. Is your main draw the lecture hall or the dining room?
That makes perfect sense. Now, what happens if we look at the ultra-luxury tier? What about Regent Seven Seas?
Regent is a step up into the true, uncompromising ultra-luxury bracket. As we discussed earlier, their model is truly all-inclusive.
So everything is covered.
Everything. Your premium spirits, your fine wines, your specialty dining, and crucially, unlimited shore excursions in every port are all baked into the upfront fare. It is a more overtly luxurious, opulent environment.
But the price reflects that.
Oh, definitely. That total lack of friction comes at a significantly higher base price point compared to Oceania's upper premium value model. You are paying a massive premium for that total inclusivity.
And finally, Silver Sea. How do they stack up?
Silversea is also firmly in the ultra-luxury camp. They differentiate themselves by offering an entirely all-suite fleet, and they provide dedicated butler service for every single room, regardless of category.
Wow, a butler for every room.
Yes. Furthermore, Silversea has a very robust expedition arm. If you want to sail through the ice of Antarctica or explore the Galapagos Islands in a luxury vessel, Silversea has the specialized ice-class ships to do it.
But again, you are paying ultra-luxury prices for those butlers and
Yeah.
that expedition capability.
Exactly.
So synthesizing this entire market landscape, Oceania really does carve out a brilliantly specific, highly appealing middle ground.
Very smart position.
They give you the absolute culinary excellence and the intimate small ship feel of the ultra-luxury lines. But by utilizing an upper premium inclusions model where they cover the dining, the gratuities, and the Wi-Fi, but let you pay for your own whiskey and shore excursions, they keep the pricing structure accessible.
It is a highly calibrated, incredibly deliberate business model. It is the definition of targeted hospitality. They know exactly who they are, and they know exactly who they are not.
Which brings us to the end of our dope dive. To pull all of these threads together from the Area Voyages briefing, Oceania Cruises is designed for the traveler who firmly believes that a culture is best understood through a perfectly crafted, locally sourced meal.
Beautifully said.
It is for the person who wants to explore tiny harbors and stay overnight in vibrant cities aboard a vessel that operates like a private, elegantly casual club. It is for people who demand the finest cuisine at sea, but absolutely refuse to wear a tuxedo to eat it.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought to mull over, building on the psychology of travel we've explored today.
Please do.
Think about the concept of friction. Think about how much of our travel anxiety, the deep stress that actually exhausts us when we are supposed to be on vacation, is generated by tiny moments of friction.
Those little annoyances.
Right. The mental math of worrying about a $75 upcharge at dinner, the stress of keeping a formal suit immaculate in a cramped closet, the sheer sensory exhaustion of navigating crowds of screaming children on a pool deck.
It's the constant, low-level hum of logistics.
Exactly. When a hospitality brand deliberately and systematically engineers that friction out of the environment when the dining is handled, the formal wear is banished, the crowds are reduced, and the financial transactions are removed from the evening dinner, it does something profound.
It frees you up.
It actually changes your psychological capacity to absorb the world around you. If your brain isn't constantly processing the logistics of the journey, you suddenly have the mental bandwidth to finally just be in the destination.
That is a phenomenal insight. When the exhausting machinery of typical noisy mega cruising is shut down and you step away from the water slides and the constant upselling, you find a completely different, far more resonant way to see the world.
You really do.
Thank you so much for joining us on this rigorous exploration of Oceania Cruises. We hope this deep dive provided the analytical clarity you need to determine if this unique upper premium model is the right fit for how you want to travel. Until next time, keep questioning how you travel, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.